One of the biggest shifts in e-mountain bike design over the past year has happened due to the Avinox motor system. It's allowing for really slimline but full power e-bikes with big batteries, like this one, the Megamo Reason. This is the Megamo Reason, and it weighs 21.29 kilos. It's a full carbon 160mm travel front and rear with Fox factory suspension and an 800 watt-hour fixed internal battery. Power comes from the Avinox M1 motor, producing up to 120 Newton meters of torque and up to 1000 watts of power from the compact Avinox motor. The slim battery keeps the down tube nice and narrow, giving the frame a compact and clean shape. The geometry and build spec is suited for trail and all-mountain and light enduro riding. The geometry is pretty aggressive, with a 63.5-degree head angle, long wheelbase and size-specific chainstays, and it's designed to be stable at speed and balanced for some technical terrain. In a market that's changing faster than ever, some brands are proving they can pivot quickly, taking new motor tech and new ideas and turning them into complete bikes in quick time. Megamo is one of those brands. So you might not have heard about Megamo, certainly from an e-bike perspective anyway, but in Spain they're pretty big, specifically for road and gravel. The headquarters is in Girona, but I wanted to learn a bit more about the company, so I headed out there last week to check them out. This is Girona in the northeast of Spain. It's home to a huge cycling scene, and it's also where Megamo is based.
Come on, please.
Cheers, thank you.
Come on.
I met with Uri from Megamo, who showed me some of the brand's history and gave me a look at how they're building their next generation of e-bikes.
Megamo born inside gas company.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This year, 39 years ago.
Here, I learned that Megamo's actually been around since 1987, way before e-bikes were a thing.
European championships, country championships for Netherlands, for Portugal.
These are the alloy frames, and they're shaped to look almost identical to the carbon versions. In the R&D centre, the team worked through the frame design process in CAD and then modelling tube profiles and linkage points and suspension behaviour. It was good to see how they develop and refine the details before sending it to production. I was honestly surprised how big their headquarters is. It's not just offices, they actually assemble, check and ship everything from here, all under the same roof in Girona. Back home and before riding it, here's a quick look at the bike and some key details. So there's quite a few models in the range, from alloy to carbon, and different price points. It starts at £4,999, right up to this one here, which is £11,500 with basically top end everything. But if I give you a run through of the geo and the kind of build of the bike, they all follow exactly the same frame, and the geometry is the same across all of them. And they all have the 800 watt-hour battery and the Avinox motor. So we've got 160mm of rear wheel travel and 160 on the front. Can take up to a 170 and even a Fox 38 if you want to. Comes standard with a Fox 36, and on this bike the new 2026 Fox X2 shock, giving 160 of rear wheel travel. Now it's 29/29, so both wheels, front and rear, 29 inches. So there is a flip chip that alters the geometry slightly, just changes the head angle a little bit and the kind of bottom bracket height. And actually, the bike is pretty suited to like trail, all mountain and light enduro use out the box. So a good couple of rides into the bike now. It is so fast and agile, like steering almost to the point where it's too quick. I want to slow it down a little bit. I think some of that is the 35mm stem. It's quite small, it's personal preference. I normally prefer a 50mm stem. It slows the steering down a little bit. I think some of it comes from the tires. They're very fast rolling, a little bit pingy over the constant routes. They're both exo casing, so I'm needing to pump them up quite a lot to stop punches, but it's losing a little bit of damping feeling from the tires. So they're kind of pinging off of things a little bit. And it leads to the bike feeling very, very fast, but almost like too lively. So I think what I'd prefer to do, if I was keeping this bike, is just fit some heavier casing tires and a 50mm stem, and that would slow down the handling quite a little bit and give a little bit more damping feeling. It's not the suspension, because the suspension tracks really well, but I think the tires are contributing to that liveliness and some of that too much of movement that I'm getting on some of the faster trails. The handling's been a real pleasant surprise. The Fox 36 factory up front feels brilliant. It's the newer 2026 model, which has tons of sensitivity and is very composed when you push it, with loads of support. And again, on the back, the suspension is very sensitive off the top, but ramps up nicely when it gets rough. On natural enduro tracks, it stays balanced, but I did scrape my butt on the 29er rear tyre, occasionally on some of the steeper stuff. But the bike doesn't really fill out of its depth. It's just solid and predictable, that lets you get on with a ride. I've got to say, the bike does handle some of the drops around my local trails pretty well. This is probably 6 foot-ish, and it's not the nicest landing, it's fairly flat. But the rear progression on the shock is around 21%, so it's not the most progressive, so it doesn't ramp up loads, but I've used all of the available travel, but I didn't feel any harsh bottoms out. I've probably done this maybe 6 or 7 times. There's one token in there, I'd probably add an extra token, but it feels nice and supple, like really supple, a little bit more linear than some. So that means it kind of feels a bit more consistent across the whole travel range with a little bit of ramp up towards the bottom. And even the Fox 36, sometimes I think, oh, I need a 38, I need big travel. But this new 36 is really good. They've got the new tech in there from Fox. And it feels like the old 36 was a little bit harsh. This one feels way more like a smooth 38, but not quite as stiff. But I do think it matches the overall vibe of the bike. It is like a trail or mountain bike and light enduro, which probably this would be classed as. So I think the spec of the bike with this suspension makes it handle some of this more techie stuff. Perhaps the 170 fork might give me a little bit more confidence out the front, but where I ride, there's not the biggest amount of drops and jumps and stuff. I get as much fun riding up the steep stuff as I do going down now. It's not just about power modes or tech, it's about how capable these bikes have become. You can crawl up ridiculous climbs while maintaining traction, and it still feels natural. Like I said already at the beginning, it's got up to 1,000 watts of peak power, but what I really like about the motor is it's so customizable in the app, and the power delivery is very, very smooth and very predictable, and there's lots of fine-tuning that you can do within the app to make it as adaptable to your riding as you like. So you could actually run this like an SL bike, or you can run it just in turbo with 1,000 watts of peak power, and you don't have to put in much effort. But it's all torque based, so the system responds to the amount of torque that the rider is putting in. And the way that I like to ride it is, I like to ride it in trail mode and dial the assistance down, but still have the peak power output at 1,000 watts. And what that does is it means that me as a rider, I have to put in way more watts to get out that maximum 1,000 watts from the motor. So as an example, I need to put in around 450 watts to unlock the full 1,000 watts. And it's very, very smooth up to that full power level. In turbo, you can have it so you don't need to put in hardly any watts as a rider, and you can just cruise up fire roads really easily, dispatch with them, get rid of all that boring stuff. Does use the battery quite quickly though. So the motor is so smooth and really predictable. There's no surges of power. There's no like bucking, or it doesn't feel wild or out of control. It just feels like an extension of your leg power, as cliched as that sounds. That's how I find this Avinox motor performs. But there's loads of other cool things that I like about it, like the touchscreen. You can adjust all of the settings within the bike itself, so you don't have to get out the phone and go through the app to adjust it. You can actually do it on the fly, like you're on a trail, don't want to get your phone out and connect it. You can do it all through the touchscreen and adjust all the parameters just like you can on your phone. And there's lots of small things that start adding up into a really good package, like protection from theft. I've got a SIM card built into it, and it can show me exactly where it is located. It's connected, you just put a 4G SIM card, you can get them quite cheap. And it's got all of that tracking built in. There's a couple of other things like quick start, which mean on a steep hill like this is quite a steep gradient, to get going, you want the bike to kind of start up as quickly as possible. And that toggled on means that it makes things like that possible. You don't have to have that momentum to get you going. You can virtually step on the pedals and the bike will propel you forward. And no doubt there'll be more updates to come. That's what I like about it. It seems to be getting better. The product gets better throughout the ownership of the bike. But it's not all just about the motor, because I think aesthetics play a part as well. And I already touched upon how these Avinox bikes are kind of changing the design of e-bikes. Like e-bikes traditionally, over the past few years, have been getting bulkier, burlier and heavier. And they put on a fair amount of heft on the look of them. But these are kind of bucking the trend completely. Like, we bumped into a couple of people on the trails today and they've said, is it an SL bike? And I don't blame them, because it looks like an SL bike, but it is one of the most powerful e-bikes out there. So no, it's the opposite of an SL bike, whatever that is. It's a full power, big battery, potent electric mountain bike. This is not the nicest hill to start on, but in theory, I should just be able to pop it into turbo and get going right away. Yeah, now I'm using 1000 watts just to cruise up this hill with the saddle really low, so I keep my center of gravity really low. But you kind of are able to have your cake and eat it with these bikes. It's SL looks, SL type of weight, full power, big battery. They're really neat. They really do feel to me like a generational leap forward in e-bike technology. Little things that you kind of forget, like picking it up over a gate or getting it into the back of the car, all make differences. They all make living with it a little bit easier. The only thing that I would say is it's a non-removable battery, much like a lot of the Avinox-based bikes are, but the way I use them is changing because the charger is so fast, charges at around 1% a minute. It's a fast charger at 12 amps. So you can use these little portable battery packs in your car or van, and you can actually charge them over lunchtime wherever you are. And I found instead of having a second battery, that's how I'm using them. I'll keep the battery in my car topped up and I'll plug it in, and in half an hour or 45 minutes, you've got about another 40% battery life, which is good enough for a really long ride across the day. So non-removable, but that does help with the weight, keeping it down. Keeps the bike a bit stiffer, there's less rattles, there's less hardware that they need to add to it. And with that fast 12 amp charger, it means you can top it up. You don't have to remember the night before. You can charge it in the morning, it charges super quick, and it just adds a little bit of extra convenience to owning an e-bike. Now, some Avinox bikes I've ridden have quite a distinct rattle noise from the motor that if you listen you can hear, but on this bike there wasn't so much rattle at all. In fact, it was barely audible. Now, the bike is brand new, and perhaps over time the motors can loosen up and develop a rattle, but my experience on this model was the motor was quite quiet. Now, there's no Avinox bikes at the moment that I've been able to fit a 240 dropper, and if you're tall, it makes a massive difference. Being able to slam the bike, the dropper post right down here, especially for steep and technical stuff. Now you can see I've got the 210 slammed, and it's only a 455mm seat tube. on this large size bike, which is really low. So I'm looking forward to trying to fit a 240 on there and being able to have like a really long dropper post on this really powerful bike for some of the downhill technical sections. But then when I'm pedaling uphill, I've got enough of the extension to be able to be at the right level to get like an effective pedaling output from my legs. And here's the bike with a 1UP 240 dropper installed. It's almost slammed right down to the collar. There's about 7mm of seat post still showing, but this is way more than acceptable to me. I've never been able to get a 240 dropper in any of the Avinox bikes I've tried so far, so this is a great result. This red paintwork is pretty loud. It's got this effect on the paint. Personally, I'll probably choose the blue over this one. I just like it. It's a little bit more subtle, but they do 3 colors. And the alloy bike in the silver and red, I think is my favorite paint style out of all of them. Looks really good. And actually the alloy bikes look really similar to the carbon. They've got this hydroformed finish and really smooth welds and looks just like a carbon bike. You can't really tell any difference. All right, let's head back to the studio. I'll talk through what it does well, what I think could be better, and where this one really fits in. I've had the bike a couple of weeks. This is not a long-term review, but I've had a good few rides. And honestly, up until a couple of months ago, I'd never heard of Megamo. And it's cool to see these new brands stepping into electric mountain biking, or brands that we've not heard before, and taking on this platform. So first up, the suspension platform. That 4-bar horse link is lovely and supple off the top. I really like a 4-bar basic suspension layout, and I think potentially brands try and create points of differences between their bikes just with the suspension platform. But having ridden loads of different suspension platforms, the horse link just works. These 4-bar suspension layouts are brilliant. They give you loads of small bump compliance, excellent traction under braking. They allow for straight seat tubes, so you can fit long dropper posts in them. And if you're tall like me, a 240mm dropper post just means that you can get the optimum height when you're pedaling, and you can slam it out the way for the kind of steep and chunkier stuff. Models start from $4,999, which I think is the cheapest Avinox bike out on the market right now. That is an alloy one, but you get the same geometry. You get the Avinox motor with the 800 watt-hour battery, and potentially a great base to upgrade from later if you want to. And they do some really nice colorways. This one's a little bit more expensive, it's an extra £100. But on all of the alloy models, they've got this hydroformed tubing on the front triangle, and basically you cannot tell the difference between that and carbon. The one step down from this one is like £3,000, at least £3,000 cheaper. Any of the carbon models, you're going to get that weight saving on the frame. And the whole bike in this configuration here weighs 21.2 kilos, which is, yeah, seriously lightweight for a 160 travel. Really powerful electric mountain bike with that Avinox motor. So the intended use is trail or mountain, light enduro, according to Megamo. And the geometry is kind of really modern, actually. It's got a 63.5-degree head angle, which is pretty slack. It's got size-specific chainstays, and they're on the longer side, which I personally like. So it's from like 450 something to 458. This is a size large, but actually it's more like an extra large, I would say. Most other brands, the sizing to this, if you look at it on paper, it would represent an extra large. It's got a fairly long front center, pretty long wheelbase, and for me, it actually fit really well. I wouldn't want to go to a bigger size than this one personally. The seat tube is quite steep, so you can get your weight perched forward, so the front doesn't want to lift up too much on the climbs. And I've actually run it in the high setting since I've been riding it, and I quite like that because it still remained fairly slack. The flip chip is, honestly, it's like a token flip chip, and I mean that by it's not really changing the geometry that much, I don't think. It's very, very marginal. And let's talk about the way it looks. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Probably not in this colorway for me personally. It's very, very loud. They do a really deep blue one that I think looks awesome. But I think the looks of it, aesthetically, all of it looks really nice. I think the silhouette of it, the kind of front triangle to rear triangle, and let's be honest, like, looks are important. I think actually if a bike performs really well but it looks crap, just people don't buy them. Looks are really important, whether we like it or admit to it or not, but this ticks that box. I think it looks like one of the nicest modern Avinox bikes out there. Really clean, just clean lines, straight lines, no fuss, and I think they've nailed it on the looks. I would like to see the battery move down slightly in the frame to reduce that center of gravity or get it a little bit lower. I had a quick look inside and there's a little bit of space that the battery could move down in, specifically on this larger frame. Probably won't make so much difference on some of the smaller frames, but I think there's room to get that center of gravity even lower on this bike. But on the whole, it's nice and clean with the integration. Now, this is a pre-production one. The full production ones will have that axis wire for the rear mech going through to the motor, and that enables things like smart shift from the Avinox motor, and it also enables things like that gear protect where it momentarily blips the power down when you change gear. At the moment, this pre-production one is just running the kind of old school, I call it, battery in the mech, but the new ones will come with the fully wired axis. And it's a long travel bike. It's got 160 on the rear and the front, which is good to see because a lot of bikes are around 150 with a trail bike. This is pushing it to 160, which is cool. They also do a 140 travel model, so it's 140 on the back and the front, same frame, just a different configuration. It's a bit of a lighter build. And that one you can actually put in a 600 battery, and it takes the weight well under 20 kilos. So if you're looking for something super light, there's that option as well. Now, some things I'd like to change. I think the stock tyres are too weak for the bike. Exo casing really doesn't really cut it on a bike like this. It does mean that I had to overinflate them, and you lose some of that suppleness and some of that rigidity you get from a thicker carcass. And it feels a little bit more pingy. I covered this in the video. So that straight up would be something that I'd like to see changed. Now, headset cable routing, it's one of those things that looks really good, looks clean, but just makes living with it a bit more hassle. Now, you need to order an Across part if you want to change the stem to a regular stem, because it's kind of like a custom bespoke part, I would say, that goes on this. You can get a bigger stem. This is 35. They do it in a 50 as well. If it was my decision, I wouldn't have headset cable routing. It's not a deal breaker at all, but I know it's something that a lot of people don't like. I've owned bikes with them before. It makes it a little bit more hassle to change brakes and bearings and headset bearings. Dropper post to standard is too short, 180. Yeah, definitely shouldn't be seen on a large bike. Probably maybe a small bike that would be the suitable on 210 at least, and probably a 240, as I found out that it fits on this. That would be great to see out of the box. And it would be good to see a proper flip chip for mullet configuration. Now, there is a little flip chip in there. It doesn't make that much difference. Probably going to make 4 mil of difference at the bottom bracket, so it's not going to maintain that geometry, but I'd be quite curious to try it and just run it anyway with a mullet. Maybe with a 170 fork, if you wanted to create something a little bit more slacker. It would be pretty extreme because it's going to drop the back, lift the front a bit. So it'd probably be good for like super steep techie tracks, but you're going to lose some of that maneuverability, I think, because it's going to make it pretty slack out the front. And finally, the stock bar rise is only 20 mil. It's quite short. Yeah, definitely higher rise bar on a bigger bike. Now, a lot of these things are personal preference. Some people might not care about those exo casing tyres. They can be changed, and the bars and the dropper post and all that stuff. And these are things that can be changed later on down the line. It would just be good to see them spec'd like it out the box. But on the whole, this bike is brilliant. This is such a fun, agile, light, fast, and good looking electric mountain bike. Now, personally, I'd love to own one of these. I just really enjoyed the way the suspension felt. I love the agility that I got from it. It just felt nice and light out the front. That Fox 36 is brilliant. That new 2026 Fox 36 is lovely and supple. And the bike is really light. Like I said it earlier in the video, I was thinking bikes are gonna get heavier and heavier and we get massive like down tubes. These are going the other way. They're just so good, man. I really do enjoy my time on these Avinox bikes. And this one specifically, it ticks a lot of boxes. For me, that straight dropper can fit a 240 dropper. The suspension platform is brilliant. It looks great. The price at the lower end models is really good. $4,999 for an Avinox Power bike is the cheapest that you're gonna get. And I think Megamo have really knocked it out of the park on this release. So they've done a brilliant job. Not perfect, no bike is perfect. They all have compromises, but I think this is a home run for Megamo. Their first e-bike with the Avinox motor, first e-bike I've ever tried from them. And well done, congratulations. And I hope to see them succeed with this and more in the future. So thanks for watching the video. Pop any questions you've got about the bike down below and I'll do my best to answer them. Until next time, I'll catch you soon.